Department of Justice's handling of the release of the Epstein files is being questioned by lawmakers and survivors. Chanel Call has more.
Good evening, America. This is Tucker Carlson with Brief News USA, and what we're witnessing right now in Washington is nothing short of extraordinary. The Epstein files, the ones Congress demanded be released in full, are finally coming out in pieces. And what's being revealed, what's being hidden, and who's controlling the flow is raising questions that go to the very heart of power in this country. As of December 23, 2025, the Department of Justice under President Trump has released multiple batches, tens of thousands of pages, photos, FBI reports, flight logs, victim statements. But here's the problem. It's incomplete, heavily redacted, and key documents have mysteriously disappeared and reappeared. Attorney General Pam Bondi is now facing intense scrutiny for what many on both sides are calling a deliberate. Past Senate hearings where she was grilled on Epstein-related decisions are resurfacing. And the biggest question tonight, why does it feel like how people are still being protected? Stay with me for this full, in-depth report. We're going page by page through the latest releases, the removed Trump photos controversy, Bondi's past testimony under fire, victim outrage, bipartisan congressional fury, and why this partial release might be doing more to fuel suspicion than provide closure. If you believe in transparency, hit like right now, subscribe to Brief News USA. And let's demand the full truth. Let's begin with the facts of how we got here. In November 2025, Congress passed, with overwhelming bipartisan support, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The bill required the Justice Department to release every single unclassified document, photo, video, and record related to Jeffrey Epstein. By December 19, 2025, President Trump, to his credit, signed it into law after initially resisting. But on December 19th, the legal deadline, what did we get? A partial drop. Thousands of pages, yes, but riddled with redactions. Entire sections completely blacked out. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche admitted publicly that the DOJ could not meet the full deadline and promised additional releases. In the coming weeks, lawmakers from both parties erupted. Democrats accused the administration of a cover-up. Republicans like Representative Thomas Massie and even some MAGA voices expressed deep frustration, saying the release grossly fails the intent of the law. By December 23rd, more batches came, over 11,000 files and 30,000 pages in one drop alone. Flight logs expanded, old allegations resurfaced.
30,000 pages in one drop alone. Flight logs expanded, old allegations resurfaced. The win streak wants fun when certain photos, including one involving President Trump, vanished. Information from the public site overnight, only to be restored after intense backlash. The DOJ claimed it was for victim privacy review. Many aren't buying it. This isn't transparency. This is controlled disclosure. And when trust is already low, he finds partial releases with disappearing documents only make people more suspicious. In Furltimpton. Now let's look at what's actually in these files, because the photos have become the most viral and talked about element of the entire release. These are images he pulled directly from Epstein's various properties, his Manhattan townhouse, his Palm Beach mansion, the private jet known as the Lolita Express, and private party settings this bring that scream elite access. Bill Clinton stands out prominently in several of them. Resting row 1 shows him swimming casually in a pool. Another captures him relaxing. Recently, he was spotted in a hot tub with a relaxed smile, and multiple shots depict him socializing. The finding out comfortably alongside Ghislaine Maxwell and other guests whose faces are sometimes blurred or redacted. In many cases, there are no dates stamped, no clear context provided. Thank you for joining us today. We have an exciting lineup of stories that we'll be covering in this broadcast, so stay tuned for more updates. Clinton's spokesperson responded quickly dismissing the images. It's the decades-old and completely irrelevant to any criminal activity, reiterating that the a former president severed all ties with Epstein well before the full extent. Epstein's crimes became public knowledge in the late 2000s. Despite that official line, massively the photos have exploded across social media, racking up millions of shares and views, if you inquire particularly on pro-Trump accounts and conservative platforms where they're being murders being used less as evidence in a pursuit of justice and more as political ammunition. Taken to murder, Strahak to highlight perceived double standards in how elite figures are treated. Prince Andrew also appears in several compromising-looking positions. One particular related image shows him reclining across a group of people in what looks like a casual, in the intimate gathering, though the faces of those around him are heavily redacted with thick degree of black bars. Other notable names surface in social settings. Mick Jagger with logs caught in candid party shots, Michael Jackson mentioned in visitor logs or pictured in passing, Chris Tucker appearing in group photos from trips or events, Kevin Spacey, has referenced in connection lists, and even Diana Ross named in passing social circles. The who's who of late 20th and early 21st century celebrity and power. But here's the crucial reminder we have to keep front and center. Simply being photographed with Epstein flying on his plane or appearing in his files does not constitute proof of wrongdoing, fair or participation in his criminal activities. The vast majority of these individuals have been repeatedly denied any knowledge of or involvement in Epstein's trafficking and abuse. And importantly, no survivors have directly accused most of them in the unsealed documents or public testimonies. These images and mentions show the depth of Epstein's embedding in elite society, but they remain social connections. Disturbing in hindsight, yes. Not automatic evidence of guilt without further substantiation. President Trump's presence, the newly released Epstein files, is notably far more limited compared to other or high-profile figures like Bill Clinton or Prince Andrew. The documents and photos involving Trump are almost entirely from the 1990s and early 2000s, a time when he was a well-known New York socialite frequently photographed at public events, charity functions alongside Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and even Melania Knauss, who would later become his wife. These are largely the same images that Ismail Erdmans have circulated publicly for years. Trump smiling at galas, posing on red carpets, or standing casually with Epstein and Maxwell in group settings. There are no Neely, uncovered compromising images, no private island photos, and no evidence in these releases placing Trump at Epstein's most infamous locations after the early 2000s. One older court document does resurface a long-known allegation from a deposition. A witness claimed Epstein once introduced Trump to a young girl and made an off-color warrant, but crucially, the accuser herself makes no direct accusation.
Remark in passing, but crucially, the accuser herself makes no direct accusation of wrongdoing against Trump, and the comment is attributed solely to Epstein. President Trump has consistently and forcefully denied any involvement in Epstein's criminal activities, pointing out that he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago years before the 2008 conviction in Florida, and stating publicly on multiple occasions that he was never a fan and wished Ghislaine Maxwell well only in the context of legal proceedings. Supporters argue this limited presence actually vindicates Trump, showing he was simply part of the same elite social circle as dozens of other celebrities and politicians at the time, with no deeper ties revealed in the latest files. But here's where the controversy really intensifies and suspicion grows, even among some on the political right, shortly after the December 19 and subsequent releases. Users noticed that a specific photo, one showing a framed picture of Donald Trump sitting on Jeffrey Epstein's desk alongside images of other public figures, was suddenly removed. from the public DOJ database without explanation. Hours later, another related file briefly vanished before being quietly restored following online backlash and questions from them. The Justice Department later claimed these removals were part. We are conducting an ongoing victim privacy review, and the items were reinstated after verification. But no detailed justification was provided for why those particular files were singled out. Critics, including independent voices on the right and transparency advocates across the spectrum, are asking pointed questions. If the stated goal of the Epstein files, Transparency Act, is full and unredacted public disclosure, why are certain documents and photos involving the sitting president temporarily disappearing while others remain untouched? This selective handling, whether intentional or bureaucratic overcaution, has fueled accusations of uneven application of the law, with some arguing it undermines the entire purpose of the release and only deepens public distrust in the process. At the center of this storm is Attorney General Pam Bondi. Old Senate confirmation hearing footage is circulating widely again, clips where Democratic senators grilled her on her past handling of Epstein-related matters in Florida and her decisions on documented review. Now, with these partial redacted releases, she's facing renewed accusations of overprotecting powerful figures, including those close to President Trump. Republican Representative Thomas Massie, one of the most principled libertarians in Congress, and a co-sponsor of the original Epstein Files Transparency Act, has gone on record threatening formal contempt proceedings against the Department of Justice if the full, unredacted files are not released immediately. Massie, who rarely aligns with Democrats on procedural matters, stated that the missed December 19 deadline and the heavily blacked out documents represent a direct violation of the law that he helped write. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, seizing the moment, announced he is preparing floor action in the coming days, describing the delays as blatant disregard for the law and accusing the Trump administration of using victim privacy as a convenient shield. Even firebrand Trump loyalist Marjorie Taylor Greene, normally one of the president's fiercest defenders, broke ranks and expressed deep disappointment, posting on social media that this partial redacted release is the opposite of the drain the swamp transparency she and millions of MAGA supporters voted for. Greene's criticism carries particular weight because it shows cracks within the president's own base when one of his strongest allies publicly questions the process. It signals that the outrage over secrecy is crossing party lines in a way we rarely see. Attorney General Pam Bondi's official defense is that the extensive redactions and staggered releases are absolutely necessary to protect the identities of victims and to allow for careful review of sensitive material that could impact ongoing investigations or national security concerns. She has repeatedly emphasized an abundance of caution approach, insisting that rushing unredacted files could cause irreversible harm to innocent survivors. However, victim advocates and several Epstein survivors themselves are pushing back hard, arguing that many of the blacked out sections clearly appear designed to conceal the names and actions of perpetrators rather than shield victims, pointing to patterns where powerful individuals' names are consistently obscured while victim details are sometimes left visible. Bondi's decades-long personal friendship with President Trump, dating back to her time as Florida Attorney General and her role on his impeachment defense team, is now fueling widespread claims of conflict of interest, with critics on both the left and is now fueling widespread claims of conflict of interest, with critics on both the left, released, and what stays hidden. The central question hanging over this entire controversy tonight is straightforward but profound. Are these delays and redactions genuine caution in the name of justice, or are they calculated control to protect the powerful? Look, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I personally do not believe President Trump had anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. I've known the man for years. I've spent time with him. He told me himself that he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago the moment he learned what kind of person Epstein really was. And that happened long before Epstein's crimes became public knowledge. Trump has been consistent on this for decades. But that personal belief doesn't change the larger issue here, and it shouldn't stop us from demanding absolute, total transparency. What I truly don't understand and what frustrates me is why we're getting this slow, drip release filled with heavy redactions and documents that mysteriously disappear and reappear. That kind of selective handling only makes people across the political spectrum believe something damaging is being hidden. If there is genuinely nothing incriminating about powerful figures in these files, then release everything unredacted right now and let the American people see it for themselves. The perception of selective protection, whether it's real or just perceived, is poisoning trust in institutions that are already on life support. This entire process should be laser focused on delivering justice for the victims who suffered unimaginable horrors, not turned into another round of political games where both sides point. Amid all the political noise, let's never forget the real victims. Maria Farmer, one of Epstein's earliest accusers, gave a chilling 1996 FBI interview included in the files. Her name was redacted, but she confirmed it. She described Epstein stealing photos of her underage sisters, threatening to burn her house if she spoke, and asking her to recruit young girls. Other survivors are speaking out now, furious at the redactions. One told reporters, "They're still protecting the powerful, not us." Grand jury materials remain almost entirely blacked out. These women and girls suffered unimaginable trauma, and they deserve the full truth to come out, no matter who it implicates. According to the DOJ, hundreds of thousands of pages are still under review. Entire grand jury transcripts blacked out. Victim privacy is cited, but the law required detailed justifications for each redaction, and many are missing. This isn't just about Epstein. It's about how power protects itself, how warning signs were ignored for decades, how elite access replaced accountability. The partial release we have is disturbing. Enough. What remains hidden may be far worse. And until every page is released unredacted, this story will never be over. The American people deserve to know the full extent of Epstein's network, no exceptions, no favoritism. America, the Epstein Files saga is far from finished. The partial releases, the redactions, the disappearing photos, they're only deepening suspicion. Demand full, unredacted transparency from your representatives. Comment below. Do you believe this is genuine caution or something more? Like, if you want every page released now, subscribe to Brief News USA and hit the bell. We'll bring you updates the moment new files drop. This is Tucker Carlson. Thank you for watching, and stay vigilant.